Welcome everybody to Nain Shorts. Welcome back or welcome to. If this is the first time, please, we do recommend that you go on YouTube. Just put in your email and it doesn't cost you anything except a little bit of time to sign up so then you can like and subscribe, help us with the numbers so we can continue this going as long as humanly possible. For some reason, YouTube's funny about the algorithm and how many people are actually viewing. And if you don't have an account, then it's harder for them to, whatever the case may be, count that you're actually doing this and the hours that you've spent watching all of my other shows before this one and all of the Konversation episodes that we have, which it's a few hundred now? A few hundred episodes? A little over 2 years, folks. But again, every little bit counts, so if you can do it with a specific IP address, then I guess they can register your watched hours and your likes and all those things, and they do help in keeping us on the air or on the internet. But enough about that. Now on to the journey that is Nain's training. And I actually went on a journey. For those of you who don't know, I was not born in this country. I was born in a little place called Sorry, my director is an idiot. But he makes me laugh. Oh my god. I was born in a small town called Constancia del Rosario de Putla Guerrero, Mexico. It is really a small place. To put it this way, we flew into Mexico City, which on the map doesn't look to be very far away from Oaxaca. And then had to take, I think it was an 8-hour bus ride to a specific town, and then a 2-hour car ride, was more like a little van, to a town that's 5 minutes away from the town I was going to. It's very rural, folks. It's still a bit of a blast from the past. A lot of wild dogs roam the streets. It's concrete. There's, some streets aren't, some streets are. There's a lot of fields. Not as many as before, though, because that was a weird thing. As I went back after 33 years of being away, I was brought here when I was 4. And I say I was brought here because everyone says, well, when you left, I was like, I was 4 years old. How did I make a decision to leave? But that's a whole different conversation altogether. The point is, I went back after 33 years, and I was able to remember more than I thought. I could tell, oh, this wasn't here, this used to be a field, and this was that, and this, and they were like, yeah, that's exactly right. But I have no idea who you are. So who are you again? And that conversation kind of ensued throughout the entire week. But part of it is that I found myself doing some field work that I haven't done ever, I think. And I think as a Mexican, I should be very ashamed of that idea or stereotype. Either one. The point is, I found myself wielding a machete for the first time for almost 3 days in a row, clearing brush. Now, my grandmother's house has this field that's probably about 3 football fields of space. 2 of those fields were covered in overgrown grass, and I'm talking grass taller than myself. I'm 5'5", so that's not a big accomplishment, but it's tall enough that it needed clearing. And it wasn't just one type of grass. There was all weeds and all. You couldn't see the ground. And the point is that I found myself helping my uncle and my aunts clearing it all. They had already taken care of maybe a football field and a half, maybe 3/4. So the rest of it, I was able to help. And man, was it exhausting. But in that exhaustion, I started making some wild leaps and associations with FMA. So this particular episode is FMA heavy, in the sense that I call out to all you FMA practitioners that do a full, complete system, that are even inheritors, if not historians of those systems, to please chime in and let me know if I'm way off the mark or if there's something to the associations that I made, because I started finding myself reminiscing on different stances, different footwork, and even the swings that other arts have shown me throughout the years. And I wondered, is this where these arts originated from. Now, I haven't done any actual studying on the subject because I literally just got back last night and now I'm doing this episode. And the thing about it is that I just made all these associations by swinging a machete itself, and I wonder how off the mark I am in reference to them. So again, chime in, voice your opinion for those of you who know, and let's start a conversation because I would really love to figure out the roots of a lot of the FMA arts, if not FMA in general. Now, I'm not talking about the roots as in the original teacher, the original person that gave it a name, the manongs that are remembered, that we hail our lineage to. Well, not me, you guys, because Danny's still alive and he's my lineage into the FMA world. But did they know where that came from? I'm talking about back in the day when it was just fields, when you had to be warrior and farmer at the same time, because warring tribes would come in and try to take what you had, or maybe your tribe had to go and take what they had, and learning how to defend yourself became part of everyday life. It wasn't just, oh, I'm only a warrior, I'm only a soldier, I'm only this. No, you probably had to do a lot similar to the bits of the experiences that I had. And again, this is what I came up with, and I'm not sure if I'm right, but I thought it was very cool to kind of consider where this all came from. And that's the question: where did it all come from? Now, the way that we cleared the fields was with a machete. No weed whackers, no leaf blowers, none of the tools that we associate with yard work here in the United States. It was literally just a machete, semi-rusted, which we had to resharpen with a rock that we found, actually, because I didn't want to walk all the way back to my grandma's place to do it. So, and in the other hand, we had a stick. Just a wooden stick, a branch that was chopped off. The other side was lopped off into a hook. And what the technique was, as you're holding the top of the weeds, you're chopping at the bottom. Now, some of them are way too big to get to the root right away. So what we had to do was had to lean them and then chop. And I started realizing, oh wait, that's kind of like the 12 angles that we know, as you chop high and then you chop low. And I was like, okay, well maybe that's where they really come from, as you're chopping and you're breaking, and then you take the whole bundle, you expose the roots, and then you chop low. Now, I started feeling a few problems with that off the bat. First of all, the way I was swinging, I wasn't going to last. I started swinging with my arm, just whacking away. I was instantly tired, dripping sweat, and I would not be able to last very long swinging that way. And then I started looking at my uncle and this other hired hand that was there, and I noticed that they weren't pulling out. Rather, they were bringing the machete back to their shoulder. They weren't swinging with their arm. They were literally letting the weight of the machete carry it forward. And I was like, oh, okay. So it made me think about my training and the way I was taught to not swing out, but rather just drop. Okay, so now I'm using the mechanics of the arm to do so. I also noticed that wrist control became incredibly important for the precision of the cut, because even though you're coming down at an angle, you want to cut parallel to the ground as much as possible, which means that at one point in the swing, your wrist has to actually turn in order to chop all the way through. Now, the biggest takeaway from me doing this was my uncle's first words: "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah." "You know you're going to cut yourself." I'm like, "I'm not going to cut myself." And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I practice FMA. I didn't say it, all the things I wanted to say, but it was funny, because the very first thing that I remembered was the idea of, if I stand with my left leg out and I'm swinging from my right, and if I chop through something that it goes very quickly through, I'm going to end up chopping my own leg. And it actually happened to my uncle, which is probably why he was telling me this. It didn't happen this past week. It happened many, many years ago when he was much younger. Because regardless of how hard you swing or how much control you have, the resistance of what you're chopping will change how you react to it and how you are able to pull back. Some things you're going to swing all the way through and your arm is just going to fly. Other things you're going to stop, which you're going to have to pull back and hit again in order to do so, because you couldn't see the bottom. You couldn't see whether it was thick, and even some things that were thick, you chop right through them. Some things that were not, because they were wet or a grass type root, wouldn't cut right away, so you'd have to hack at it until it got out, which means that your positioning of your feet became incredibly important on how well you're going to last. Because you have to think about this, you're clearing an entire field. Sure, there's a few of you, but how long is your back going to last? How long is your arm going to last? How long are your legs going to last? So the way that you position your feet allows you to swing longer, swing harder or softer depending on what you're cutting, because I found myself with different stances. Largo mano has this stance. You see it a lot. Swinging out. But I noticed that it became incredibly useful when I'm trying to cut a big bundle of grass. How did it start is I pushed everything out, I chopped in the middle, then I chopped the root. And then I kept going in, and I kept going in and further. And before I knew it, I found myself in this largo mano stance. And I'm collecting the bundle, cutting everything across. And I was like, oh, wow. So it isn't just about the range of reaching somebody far, but it was the range that you can cover and the amount of things you can cut along the way. So you can even argue in this particular instance that largo mano isn't just for things far away. Maybe you want to cut behind your opponent as you redirect somewhere else. You can still get the large swing, but now you're cutting the tendon of the leg, the back of the knee, or maybe even the spine. Because I assume that as these farmers now had to use these same motions for warring or for protection, they now have to associate what they're cutting from the plants in their indigenous area to the human body. Again, this is just pure and utter speculation. I don't know. I haven't put in the time. But maybe that is some semblance of where these moves started. Because then I started realizing that there are other plants where I really do have to get low. I couldn't just chop down here. And it made me think of some of the arts where they do get low and then they come back up. They get low and come back up, and then they switch to different sides. And you've seen the movements, and I've seen the leg work, and I've seen how they go down like that. I found myself doing a lot of these very same footwork that, by the way, I haven't practiced, but I've seen in one point or another. And they became incredibly useful for what I was trying to cut, for what I was trying to clear. And then I thought, wow, maybe these are the roots of FMA. Or maybe FMA just helped this gringo, well, I'm not really a gringo, but this now gabacho from America, do some field work and actually keep up with the guys that do this on a regular basis. I don't know. It could be one or the other, or it could be neither. So again, I call out to you that know more than I. Please let me know. Is there some truth to it? And an even bigger and broader question, they're not just FMA practitioners, but do we really know the origins of the art? And again, I'm not talking about the great grandmasters that gave it a name. I'm not talking about the sijos that started the schools or the monongs that we remember. I'm talking about before that, when it was just fields, when it was just farmers protecting themselves, when it was just people on the street who didn't want to die because some soldier wasn't mouth off or was too drunk and just felt like hitting you because your people weren't as important as they were. And they had to learn how to defend themselves from serious threats with what they had. And oftentimes, it was farming tools. Things that they used for the land. That became their tools of war, or better yet, self-protection. How far back can we go to really find out the roots of where our arts came from? And if we dig deep enough, will we find some commonality between all the arts? Is there some sort of art that kind of predates all of them that led to where we are today? Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe different people from all over the world put in similar situations came up with similar answers. And in respects to FMA, maybe the reason why we have these different movements, we have these different stances, depending on the regions that the Filipinos come from, or the now Filipino people come from, is because of the foliage. The type of weeds, the type of trees, the type of things they had to cut in their area changed the way they swing, changed the way they move, changed their mentality on how then they adapted those very same movements, stances, and everything that's become your FMA into what it is today. What influence did they have? It just became a very interesting, introspective kind of week for me, really. And I started questioning a lot about it, and not just the ideas of where these angles of attack or these stances have come from, or the way you move your feet or don't move your feet. It made me question more about the people, right? Why was your particular art created? Why has it continued? The whys that we don't always ask, because we just think, oh, that looks cool and I want to learn it. And then you stick with it long enough and you get the whole picture of it. And everyone can tell you that when you study, especially a more traditional martial art, you get a good sense of the history of the people that it came from. But do we stop there? Would it even be helpful to go any further than that? I think it would be, but I have a morbid curiosity about this sort of thing. I don't know about you. And if you know, does any of this hold water, or am I just talking out of my ass as usual? Either way, please let me know, because I would love to have a discussion with someone like Melo Pilia, who has the history, who has so much knowledge within him about the Filipino people themselves. Because folks, we know that the arts do represent our cultures in many, many different ways. How much? How literal? How not so literal? Well, I think all those things are important, and I hope this maybe gets you to start asking a few questions about your particular art. Where did it come from? Did it really start the way that the legends say it started? Or is that just a fictitious story that was created to kind of give it some flair? Is there a more simplistic lesson behind it? Something that we haven't thought about yet. Something that maybe we forgot through the generations. Either way, I just really hope that this episode intrigues you as much as this experience has intrigued me, to revamp my training once again, to start hitting things once again, because I was so mad that I got all these damn blisters on my hands and I was bleeding and I was too damn stubborn to stop. I was sweating, I was burning up. You couldn't go past a certain time in the day because that sun would just kill you. And then we'd go have beer. So it was a good experience overall. I had a great time, and the questions that I came back with, I now give to you, folks. Please let me know. I would love to hear from you. Again, like and subscribe if you like the content. Please, you have to sign up. It doesn't cost you anything, just a little bit of time, and we can continue doing more and more of these videos. Thank you very much for joining me on another one of Nain's Shorts. Till the next one. It's 3, 2, 1, cut! Oh, cut!